Hey everyone, Alex here, and in this video I'm going to be going over my favorite and probably most profitable betting strategy, which is the cross-market EV plus EV strategy. There's not really a name for it, but basically I'll explain what a cross-market is, how to find a cross-market, kind of soft versus sharp books. That's the main basis of it, but yeah, let's get into it. All right, so first off, a cross market is simply just an arbitrage opportunity. So any bet on this Arb Finder tab on Smart Stake is going to be a cross market. It simply means that you have equal and opposite outcomes. So over 18 and a half, under 18 and a half, one of these has to hit because he can't score exactly 18 and a half points. And then because this is 138 and you have minus 118, this is an arbitrage opportunity, which is a cross market. So if you look at the calculator, it just means with correct unit sizing here, you'd get your payout on each no matter what at 369.69, and your total wager would be this plus this, which is only 355.3. So with those wager sizes, you're going to make a no risk profit, a risk-free profit of $14.36. So that's just simple arbitrage betting. If that's what you want to go for it. But there's a reason why I don't really do that anymore. I live in Connecticut and there's not as many books in Connecticut, and the ones that I was able to use for arbitrage were DraftKings, FanDuel, Novig, and ProfitX, which was good because I had a few softer books and then a few exchanges. And the exchanges are great for arbitrage betting because there's no limits. But they actually just banned ProfitX and Novig in Connecticut, and I got limited so badly on DraftKings that the arbitrage bets weren't even worth it. So like if I on this bet, let's say this is let me find a DraftKings one. Okay, like here, if I were to bet on this, I probably would only be able to get maybe $30 down, and that arbitrage makes me $2. It just wasn't worth the grind. Um, but let me show you my strategy now that kind of gets around that with still using the arb tool, but not for arbitrage betting. Okay, so the way that I use the Arb Finder tab is it points out the cross markets and I don't place both sides of the bet like a normal arbitrage bet. I simply place one side. I place on the side that I think is giving better value than the other. Now, every bet on here isn't going to be one that I bet on for my cross market strategy, but inherently in an arbitrage bet, there you have two bets. One of them is guaranteed to be plus EV, right? Think of a situation where fair line is plus 100. If you have two bets, two arbitrage bets that were each plus 100, that's not actually arbitrage, they're a locked market. They have the same odds. Neither of them are plus EV. They're both exactly even value, right? They each have a 50% chance of hitting and plus 100. As soon as one of those moves to plus 101, there's an arbitrage opportunity. You could place $100 on both, make a dollar no matter what. And that one that moved to plus 101 is now the positive EV one. That one has a positive EV because you're getting a better payout. It still has a 50% chance of hitting, and you're getting a payout of plus 101, which is positive EV. Okay, the way that I set up my ARB Finder screen is I add all the books in my state, so DraftKings, Fanatics, FanDuel, and then I add all the exchanges and the sharp books that I want to, right? So I have Bookmaker in here, ProfitX, Novig, and I know I have Pinnacle in here. Yeah, Pinnacle. We could add Circa. Uh, Here we could add Circa. We could add Sport Trade. Anything that you trust the market on is ones that we want to find the cross markets to. Okay, here's a perfect example of a bet I would place. This arbitrage tool is saying you could get Dean Wade over under 7.5, make a risk-free profit. But it's clear that the value is on the DraftKings side. Every other book has DraftKings favored, right? But Novig, it's crossed with Novig and it's crossed with ProfitX. Now, the whole theory behind the cross-market EV strategy is that on these exchanges, so someone's offering plus 118. That means they're receiving minus 118. This guy minus 112. I can get this bet at minus 103. So, like the sharp money tool points out, where there's large positions on exchanges, it's just the general notion. You want to trust money that's going down on exchanges. So if you can get a bet that's arbitrage, that means that the person who's placing this in his sophisticated model thinks that minus 118 is good value. That means the fair line is even higher than that. That means the fair line for this guy is probably minus 125 or something. This guy might think that his minus 112 bet has good value. Maybe his fair line that he calculated was minus 118. Either way, if it's crossed with an exchange, that means that person thinks that they're getting good value on their bet and you're getting even better value. I think this might be a better example because this one is crossed with Pinnacle, which is what I think is the sharpest book. So DraftKings, you can get under at minus 110. Every other book has pretty much ripped towards that under a little bit more heavily, most importantly being Pinnacle. So Pinnacle, you can actually get the over at plus 115. You can make a risk-free profit. Pinnacle is not even legal in the US, but I just added to the ARB tool so I could point out good value. So if you were to devig this market using the devigging tool, it says fair line is minus 130 and we're getting minus 110. That's simply just a positive EV bet, but I found it on the ARB finder. Now, I'm sure some of these bets are going to show up on the positive EV tool, and you can use this strategy in the positive EV tool. I'll show you that later, but it's kind of just another look at the market at a different way. For this bet too, if you just look at some of the other sharper books, so we have Bookmaker, clearly more it's favored more towards the under. Even FanDuel, right? Novig, you can get plus 100. That's pretty good EV to Novig as well. This is just a good bet on DraftKings. Now, similarly to what I said in my positive EV video, when trying to find bets, you want to find the markets where the market is aligned and you're betting on the one book that is off. Here's kind of an interesting market. So you've Pinnacle, which has the over favored. You can get good value on DraftKings. This would be an arbitrage. However, the rest of the market's kind of confused. You have some of these softer books that also have the over favored. But then if you keep going, you have some other ones that have the under favored, including Novig. This is a market that I would just avoid. There's not clear value on either side. Um, you want to find the markets that are consensus on a fair value, and the one book you are betting on is the one that is super far off, right? That's where the value is coming from. If you can't correctly infer what the fair line is, right? You could devig any single book, but it's about finding the ones that agree. So if you have prices all over the place, one side's favored on some books, one side's favored on another book, especially between sharp books, that's just a market you would want to avoid. Here's another great bet. So Cooper Flag under 3.5 is what we're looking at on FanDuel. It's crossed with Pinnacle. It's also crossed with Novig. Here, this would be minus 160. And you can just generally see it's crossed or good EV to most of the other books on here. This is one where it's just clear that FanDuel is the one that's really messing up. Another thing I wanted to point out was I know the sharp money tool points out large positions on exchanges, right? So this bet probably wouldn't pop up because there's only $50. I like to think that maybe this bet had $10,000 on it at some point, but it all got filled and there's just $50 left. So you never know how much money was there. So any cross market that's popping up at all, I would take that into account and use it as a data point. Your goal here is to try to find bets that agree with two, at least two. I like to use three, or if the general market consensus is pretty off compared to the one you're getting, then that's a good bet. And just any markets that any sharp books are clashing and are not in agreement, I would just avoid. Okay, so now I'm on the positive EV tool. Um, but I found this good example. So this actually is a cross market. It's also crossed with prime sports. But I just wanted to point out something that I would look for and avoid is just markets that don't have a ton of books offering lines, right? It's hard to tell what has value when there's only two or three books. Now, to be honest, I would probably take this over 55.5 for fourth quarter total. It's arbitrage to bookmaker, it's arbitrage to prime sport, and it's good EV to FanDuel. But if these were kind of all over the place, it's just you got to be careful with the ones that don't have a lot of books offering lines in that market because then it's hard for you to really tell and what the fair value is. The other way to find these bets is on the Sharp Money tool. This tool simply points out cross markets or close to cross markets. So when you're using this tool, the green means that it is a cross market, and the gray means that it's very, very close to being cross market, which just means it has very good EV to that market, right? So, I mean, plus 104 on over 51.5, cross with no vig, and almost cross with Profit X. It's just, and the rest of the market too, it's just there's no one else really even offering plus money. This is just a another good bet, easy cross market bet. The reason I think that this strategy works so well is just that if you trust in the lines of these sharp bookmakers, you're basically getting bets that they dream they could get. So let me explain. So they're offering plus 107 on the under 4.5. So if I bet this, I get plus 107 on the under. That essentially means they have the opposite side, right? Think of it as an exchange, but Pinnacle is just the exchange. They're the other side of every bet. They're getting minus 107. They would love to get minus 101, right? Like in no scenario would they ever turn down minus 101 if they're willing to take on minus 107. And when all the books align, it's just you're essentially getting bets that these books dream of. And Pinnacle is already usually operating on a pretty thin margin. Their VIGs are pretty small usually. That's just the distance between their upper and lower bound. Especially for more mainline bets like a money line or a spread. You'll notice that the spread for Pinnacle is usually only like 13 to 15 points wide. For player props, it's always going to be a little wider. But still, even if on a wider market, if you can still get across market with it, that just means it's even further from the fair line, and that's even a better bet. The reason I think this happens so much is that DraftKings is getting way more betting volume, right? They're, I think, more worried about their exposure than, the exact having their odds reflect the exact implied probability of every market. So let's consider a scenario. So let's say you have over under 7.5, minus 110 on each side in like a baseball game. And let's say that's the market consensus. And then let's say at some point the market consensus starts to drop. Let's say the odds start to favor the under. So let's say Pinnacle now is offering minus 130 on the under and plus 112 on the over. And DraftKings doesn't move their line. They're still minus 110 each side. That would be a cross market. You'd have DraftKings minus 110 for the under, and the over on Pinnacle would be plus 112. Now DraftKings isn't moving their line because they probably already have more people on the over. So if they move the line towards the under, then those bettors are just going to get better and better odds. So they're just worried about their overall exposure. They're trying to balance each side and just take in that VIG. Doesn't matter if that VIG is exactly correct in terms of the implied probability, like Pinnacle is. They're more worried about their exposure. And generally, people are going to bet on overs more because they're more fun, and you have your casual bettors that are just going to ride overs. They don't ride unders. That's why generally, I don't know if you guys have noticed, it's like a lot of the EV bets and arbitrage cross markets are on unders because these softer books probably have more money on the over already, and they don't want to give those people better lines. The last thing I just wanted to touch on was when you have all these filters set and you get a scenario where there's two sharp books with a arbitrage opportunity across market. I don't have access to these books anymore, but if I did, this is kind of where you get into trouble a little bit when the sharp books are not aligning. If you're new, I would just generally avoid these entirely. If you want to dabble with them, start with lower units, track your bets. It's just harder to know on two sharp books when the markets are not aligned where the value is, right? On this one, if I had to pick a side, I would say take the Novig side just because, I mean, they're obviously are with each other, but the rest of the market is not offering anywhere close to minus 130, really. There's maybe this book, but most of them, it's just you get into murky water when you're trying to decide between sharp books. I would just generally stay away, focus on the sharp book to soft book cross markets. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. This strategy has definitely been my most profitable way to bet. Um, yeah, I hope everyone learned a thing or two. And if you have any other questions, definitely send me a message on Twitter here. Toss me a follow if you want. My handle here is keep on betting. But yeah, good luck to everyone, and thanks for watching.